What's going on, YouTube? So Hyundai has been making big waves in the family three-row segment, and the latest wave is this all-new Palisade. We were extremely impressed by this model when we first tested it out, but now it's time for the real test. How do we like it after living with it for a full 7 days? So, are we still impressed? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's start off this review under the hood with a quick spec dump. So you can get two different powertrain options with this new Palisade, a V6 or their brand new hybrid system, which is what we have today. This is a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with 2 electric motors to make 329 horsepower. This one is paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission, and with all-wheel drive, combined fuel economy is 29 mpg.
Now, the base price for the Palisade is around $39,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, this, of course, is a real-world 7-day review, so we have a couple special elements, including our fuel economy test, as well as to tell you at the end if we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it this week.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood, because before that, we've got a lot to talk about with the exterior and interior. So getting into the exterior design, one of the things that we like to do is show off our press cars to family and friends and see what different people think about it. Well, this of course has an all new design because this is a new generation of the Palisade. And I have to say, I think it was very well received this week by most people. Now, the front end is the most controversial element of it. It's a little bit of a bold look, but as far as an all-encompassing, people seem to really like the exterior design of this model. So, breaking down some individual elements, of course, up here in the grille, we've got a squared off shape with a lot of silver accents. You also have a little light bar that runs across the center section. And then since today we have the calligraphy trim level, we also have a silver accent that runs along the bottom part of the fascia. Now the headlights, those are also going to be very distinct for this model. So you'll see that we have kind of a separated unit. This is actually your low and high beam headlights right over here. And then you've got this bar that goes down, which is your daytime running light and turn signal indicator. It also has animations on the calligraphy trim level. And as we head around to the back, this new Palisade, I think, has a pretty handsome look here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it looks very premium for this segment. Let's break down some of the individual design touches. We have our spoiler up here at the top. Our wiper is actually integrated underneath to keep it from being weathered. Of course, that's important on a day like today. And let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights are very premium looking. They have that kind of piano key design to them. And they also have the amber turn signal indicator going through there. And you have an LED reverse light integrated down in the lower bumper. Overall, I think the lighting looks very premium here on this Palisade. Just be aware that between the trim levels, you do have quite a bit of variation in terms of the rear design. Now, when it comes to your tow rating, it's 4,000 pounds for the hybrid or 5,000 pounds for the V6.
Moving on to the wheels, you have many designs from 18 to 21-inch alloys, depending on which trim level you choose. These are the 21-inch multi-spoke alloys on the calligraphy trim level. And by the way, in terms of the overall design, whether you choose the V6 or the hybrid, you're pretty much going to get exactly the same things. It's just going to be a little bit of different trim selections. Now, one important thing to note, though, is the fact that we have the body color wheel surrounds, as well as this accent down here on the bottom for the calligraphy only. Some of the other models will have matte or shiny plastic through there. Moving up here to our mirrors, these are fully loaded on this model, and that even includes auto dimming and power folding on both the driver and passenger side.
Now, at the side of the Palisade, overall vehicle length is 199.2 inches, which does mean this new generation did grow a little bit. We'll talk about overall interior space in just a little bit. Now, as far as design, we do have a little bit of chrome trim that kind of sweeps into the rear with that very unique pillar there, and we also have the raised chrome roof rails up at the top. Now, when it comes to your safety systems, I'm happy to tell you all of your active safety features are standard equipment on this model. We found them to perform really well this week. And additionally, here on the calligraphy, you'll get things like Highway Drive Assist 2.0. But guys, I think you'll be blown away by the interior of this model. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the inside. Here is Hyundai's typical key fob. To start things off, you have a standard smart entry system, and you also have the digital key system available. Smart Park is on this Calligraphy, and as you approach the vehicle, the mirrors will go ahead and fold outward. Just grab behind the handle, that will unlock the door. Now let's check out the interior. As already mentioned, this is the top of the line Calligraphy, so we have just a beautiful interior as soon as we look inside. But before we get into specific details of this cabin, let's start off by talking about the seats. So of course, the trim levels are going to vary. You're going to start with cloth seats on the very base model, and you move up to a faux leather, then a real leather, and then you end up at the very top, this right here. This is our full Napa leather seat. It's an absolutely beautiful high-end piece of leather. Feels nice, looks really nice. You have several colors you can choose from. We've got obviously the full brown option, but you can also get some other color choices as well. And you'll notice down below that the seats themselves have a ton of adjustments. That's because here on the Calligraphy, we have the full relaxation seat. So this includes things like a power footrest there that can actually extend out, and you can take some naps, of course, not while you're driving. And this also comes with massaging as well, which is a really good massage. But I do want to point out it's only on the driver's seat, not the passenger seat. So whoever's over there might be a bit jealous of your overall experience. But let's go ahead and climb on inside. And fully inside the cabin, let's look around at the rest of the materials. So over here on the door trim, we have a full covering of brown leather-like material, and also all through the entire door trim. As we move to the upper dashboard, again, that leatherette material goes through here with the stitching detail. We have this material, it kind of circles around, and then in the middle here, we have a faux wood trim, which I have to say feels extremely realistic. And it also looks super nice when the ambient lighting kind of casts down on it. More of that will be right here, and we have more leatherette going on. This vehicle is built extremely solidly, so their build quality is very rock solid. We'll go ahead and fire it up with the push button start that's now been located here on the shifter. And that does take a little getting used to, by the way. Now that it's all fired up, let's get into some individual details. We'll start with the gauge cluster as always. This is your 12.3-inch digital cluster. This is what's included on pretty much all of the trim levels, and you can reconfigure it with a few different design selections. Also, the Calligraphy model will give you a head-up display, which has some very useful stuff. I certainly appreciate having the blind spot information up there, or you can also use the blind spot camera system. Now you have rain sensing wipers, and as we pull back to the steering wheel, we have a beautiful two-tone design here on the Calligraphy trim. Of course, it is going to be heated. One thing to point out, it is a manual tilt and telescoping steering wheel. There are a few of the rivals that give you a power adjusting function. All right, let's turn over here and take a look at interior storage next. So I'll pop this open. Inside, we have it loaded with donuts. That's right, it's time for our signature donut test. And inside of this, we have a dozen donuts, 12 donuts, which passes the donut test and is quite good. That's not all the storage, though. Mason will talk a little bit more about some additional storage that you have access to in the back. But in front of that, we have our two cup holders. You have a wireless phone charging pad. You have a giant pass-through area as well. A little bit of storage right there, which we have some sunglasses in, and we have a passenger storage shelf. So Hyundai definitely took the storage situation very seriously in this new Palisade, giving you plenty of flexibility. One thing I also want to mention about the center console is this comes with UV light sterilization. This won't matter to some people, but it is something that Mason and I both appreciate, being able to throw your phone or keys in there and have them sanitized on the go. Now, of course, as I was showing you earlier, the shifter is up here on the column. Just twist up for drive, twist backwards for reverse. And as you can see, here's our 360-degree camera system. This is included on the SEL Premium trim and above, and also it has the 3D view. Press the end right there for park. You also have an electronic parking brake with a brake hold function. Now, in the center section, I think Hyundai listened to customer feedback, because you'll notice that there's a lot of buttons on board. Some of the critical buttons are right here with our climate controls. So we have a 3-zone automatic climate control system. We can just use the knob there to adjust the temperature up and down. Then you have a small touch panel here with some of your other functions, including the heated steering wheel and your heated seats. Very important on a day like this. That is standard on all but the base model, and then your ventilated seats are on the SEL Premium and above. You also have a full suite of buttons here for the audio system as well. So the XRT and above is what gives you the 14-speaker Bose premium sound system. Let's give that a sample right now. Overall sound quality is pretty good. Both Mason and I thought the sound system sounded quite nice. Fills up the cabin well. It's probably not the best in the entire segment, but it is pretty good. Alright, so now let's take a look at the main infotainment system. So this is another 12.3-inch display. It's kind of attached to that gauge cluster and tilted slightly towards the driver. This display is pretty much the same as you've seen on other Hyundai products, so it works really, really well and really fast, especially when pairing Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with both run wirelessly. That's what we're in right now. Now, if I go ahead and cycle back to the main Hyundai system, this is called CCNC. You have quite a lot of functions, including a built-in navigation system. You can also access some of your hybrid details, and you can also control things like all the different power seats on this Calligraphy model with different types of functions. I also want to point out that this has a built-in dash cam function, so when there's different types of events, it'll record, and as you can see, it just gives you this nice catalog that you can actually search through right here inside of the screen itself or download it somewhere else. Up top here, we've got an auto-dimming mirror. This is also the digital camera rear view mirror, and you have your HomeLink universal remotes located right there. Up top, we have a very premium suede headliner, which feels super luxurious, especially for this segment of vehicle. And then we can open up our 2 different sunroofs. So the front part here is just kind of a traditional size. This one opens up, and then the back one there, as you can see, goes over the 2nd and 3rd row and has a power sunshade.
So how do we feel about these rear seats after living with them for the past week? Well, I have to say, pretty darn good. So let's go ahead and first start by talking about the rear seat legroom. So about 43 inches of legroom, 40 inches of headroom. Those are really incredible space numbers. As a matter of fact, those are class-leading figures. That is the best in the entire segment. That is certainly very impressive. And of course, I brought along the official Car Confections ruler to see how much knee room we have. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", I'm 5'9", and we are looking at 10 inches of additional knee space. My feet can also slide up underneath of these seats, and these seats we found to be quite comfortable here in the 2nd row. You may notice that we have captain's chairs. That's going to be included as standard equipment on most of your trim levels, and just be aware that you can get bench seating if you need that extra seating capacity up to 8 passengers, but here on the Calligraphy is just going to be 7-passenger seating. Now, there's a reason for that, because these captain's chairs are super nice, and you'll notice over on the side that we actually have full power adjustment. That's a Calligraphy exclusive feature to have the full power adjustment, but that allows you to slide the seats forward and back. It also allows them to recline a really great distance, and you can even do the relaxation seat, so actually we'll tilt the seat bottom up and give you that maximum amount of comfort. I can just imagine going on super long road trips and absolutely falling in love with these rear seats. That's for sure. It's a great family vehicle. Now let's go ahead and also talk about some of the other features that Hyundai is including. So you have a household outlet right here front and center, and then you'll notice that we have an extra storage cubby here. That's because, kind of half of the top of the console is divided here in the rear, so your kids can store things back here in the back. And then let's also talk about some of the other features, which are mainly located up here on the ceiling. So you'll have your own climate controls that you can adjust up and down really easily. Additionally, you have both heated and ventilated 2nd row seats. That's actually included not just on this top Calligraphy, but on SEL Premium, Limited, and Calligraphy grades. You'll have both of those features. Now, we're not done yet, because we have rear window sunshades over here on the side. We have a really nicely crafted door trim. You have a little bit of color contrast in the middle here in the back. Plenty of door storage, including a bottle pocket right there in the front. So overall, this rear seat is quite impressive, and after living with it this week, I have to say it impressed us even more. Now let's check out the third row. In order to get back here, you just press this button right here. Because the seat is fully power adjusting, you don't really have to do anything besides press that button, and it is going to rather slowly tilt and slide out of the way. You would not have to remove a child seat though, so that's certainly nice because the back does not move. And let me go ahead and hop back here into the third row itself. So in terms of third row legroom, we're sitting at about 32 inches of legroom, 37 inches of headroom. And as far as the maximum, that's about 33.6 inches. You may notice that there's actually a gap here, and that's because you can actually power slide these third row seats forward and back. So when you slide it back to give you the maximum of 33.6 inches of legroom, that's actually a class-leading figure for this segment. So really good numbers there. As far as other things that you will want to know about, the seats are going to be quite comfortable back here. There are 3 seats here in the third row. Over on the sides, you'll have 2 cup holders, a USB port. In addition to the power sliding and reclining, you additionally have a heated third row, and that's going to be included on Limited and Calligraphy. And then you have vents coming out of the ceiling. So overall, this is one of the very best third rows in the entire segment. So I'm going to say this is fit for adults. Now walking up to the tailgate, of course, we have a power one with the hands-free ability. And let's talk about overall cargo capacity with the Palisade. Now, like I said, it has increased in length about 2.5 inches over the previous generation, but unfortunately that doesn't increase your capacity much. 19 cubic feet behind the third row, 46 cubic feet behind the second row, and 86 cubic feet with all of the seats folded down. That's certainly not going to be a small number for the segment. However, it's certainly not the largest option. You can get a Toyota Grand Highlander, a Chevy Traverse, an Acadia, things like that, and that'll have about 10 more cubic feet of space than this. Speaking of all of its rivals, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. This is a highly competitive segment, and we've looked at all the 3-row mainstream SUVs on the market and ranked them in individual categories that might matter most to this type of buyer. Things like third row, cargo capacity, interior technology, luxury features, and powertrain. Each of those categories are on our website, and you can sort and see the best options depending on what matters most to you. Now, we have also updated this to the latest 2026 data, so you'll definitely want to check that out. Now, back to the Palisade. When it comes to features, you'll be pleasantly surprised back here because over here on the side, you have a button that you can just, with one click, fold both the second and third rows with just one press of the button. That's because, of course, that we have a power folding third row, which is not a given for this segment. And, of course, the power second row allows that to be able to be done just with one single button press. You can also do it up in the front of the cabin with the screen, which is pretty useful for families. And let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. Behind Drew's 5'8" position, we're looking at 88 inches of overall cargo length. From behind the second row of seats, with it slid all the way back, 48 inches. From behind the third row, 18 inches. It's 47 inches wide, and then overall height is 31 inches tall. Those are quite good numbers. And then let's get our load-in height. The load-in height is also sitting right at 31 inches. I want to point out the hybrid and the gas models have exactly the same cargo capacities. Underneath of the floor, you have a little bit of extra space. The only difference between the gas and the hybrid is that the gasoline model will include a spare tire. On the hybrids, you do not get that feature. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the all-new Hyundai Palisade. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting our official Kentucky sound level rating and discussing our real-world fuel economy. I know a lot of you guys are curious about that, but first we need to start with a hard acceleration.
All right. That takes us to 60 miles an hour with this all-new Palisade. This is the hybrid model, as we discussed earlier in the video, which is also the most powerful version of the Palisade. So, As far as the power figures on this, we're looking at 329 horsepower and 339 pound-feet of torque that comes from this new hybrid system, which is using a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It also has 2 electric motors to produce that power output. And overall, I have to say acceleration is quite swift The V6 Palisade, we've also tested that out on the channel as well if you want to check it out. As smooth and nice as that is, the one thing that people could certainly complain about is that it was a little bit sluggish overall, and this really remedies that.
Yeah, absolutely. After living with this hybrid powertrain, we initially drove it back in Texas and we were pretty impressed with it. And, living with it for the week, I think has really unlocked just how good this hybrid system is and how much power it delivers. You're looking at around 40 more horsepower as compared to the V6 and around 80 pound-feet more torque. So those two things really just make this vehicle feel quite quick instead of a little bit on the sluggish side when you have the 3.5 liter V6. By the way, the power numbers on that are 287 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of the competition just does like a turbo 4-cylinder, no hybrid system, anything like that. So I think this really is just a terrific balance between having like extra refinement and also extra power versus those straight turbo 4 options. Very nice.
Yeah.
Let's also discuss another element of the powertrain, and that's the fact that this has a 6-speed automatic transmission. So that's, of course, a little bit different than the 8-speed automatic. I'm getting very distracted by this actual just swarm of birds in the road. All right, that was very weird. But as I was saying, 6-speed automatic transmission. The V6 has an 8-speed automatic. This is a smooth and pretty responsive transmission. Obviously, it's down a little bit in terms of gears, compared to an 8-speed, but I don't think it's been an issue at all because you have so much torque on board with the hybrid system. And of course, a lot of the competition, if they do offer a hybrid, is going with more of a continuously variable for the most part, or also the Grand Highlander Hybrid Max has a 6-speed.
All right, but we're just cruising down our designated strip of road, so we need to talk about ride quality. I think that's another thing that we have really learned a lot after living with this model for a week. Initially, we were very impressed, and you can see it demonstrated right as we go over those bridge abutments. This thing rides so good. I think this has got to be one of the best riding vehicles that we've tested in the last year, honestly. Despite having 21-inch alloy wheels on the outside, this thing rides like a dream. It soaks up all but the very largest road imperfections, and I have to say, compared to its competition, this may be the best riding in the segment. And we've driven it over all types of road surfaces this week, and it really is just exceptionally good. I think the only part that you can feel some of the imperfections enter into the cabin is if you had a really big bump, because it does have those big wheels on the outside.
And the seats play into that because they are tremendously comfortable.
All right, and we're speeding up to 55, so let's get our sound level reading to see how quiet this Palisade is. Very good. 54.4 decibels is our official Kentucky sound level reading for the Palisade. Now, we don't have to sit here and guess. We can go to carconfections.com/sound level readings and see how it compares to its competition. Now, compared to its competition, that is still going to be one of the very quietest options in the entire segment. It's not a huge improvement over the previous generations of Palisade and Telluride model. However, it is still a very quiet cab, and it's more on par with a lot of luxury products, that's for sure. And I think once you get behind the wheel of this product and start living with it, you kind of feel how luxurious it is and how quiet it is in the cabin. It does feel kind of in line with a luxury SUV, at least here in the Calligraphy grade.
Yeah, you could certainly be almost tricked into thinking that for sure, and also plays into that the fact that the engine stays nice and quiet even under hard acceleration. And we need to talk about the transition between the electric power and the engine. It's very seamless with this new generation of hybrid system. I think this is definitely the best work Hyundai has done, and they have caught up to Toyota in this sense now. You really cannot feel it or even hear it unless you're really paying attention, especially if you have music on.
And speaking of that hybrid system, how good fuel economy wise is it? Well, the EPA is saying that with all-wheel drive, it's rated at 29, 30, 29 combined. Now, it is worth noting you can actually get a front-wheel drive version, which is kind of rare for a vehicle in this segment to have a front-wheel drive hybrid option. That can get up to 34 mpg with the blue model. However, how's our real-world fuel economy been holding up this week? Well, as you can see, it has been very cold outside this week. We have snow on the ground. It's been, abnormally cold for this time of the year, which does negatively impact your fuel economy. Overall, our initial impressions, we have a bit more driving to do this week, but across 133 miles of driving, we're sitting at 22.4 mpg. That's mostly city driving. However, we will go ahead and insert in a picture after our full week of driving where we get that number to be more mixed city and highway driving, and hopefully it warms up a little bit to give you a more realistic fuel economy figure. But on several trips that I took on exclusively highway driving, I was sitting more around the 30 mpg mark. So certainly this hybrid system is capable of giving really good fuel economy, but on short trips in the cold winter conditions, it's definitely going to be a little bit closer to the 20 mpg mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's just to be expected from all cars, even hybrids as well. If you're, looking at this against the Toyota Grand Highlander hybrids, so they have two of them, this is probably going to be more in line with the fuel economy of the Hybrid Max system. You should hopefully be able to outperform that by a little bit, and the power is just a little bit less than that as well.
All right, let's get into our Car Confections Slam Dunk and Airball. Drew, why don't you kick us off with the Slam Dunk of this Palisade?
Well, the Slam Dunk is just the fact that Hyundai really improved the Palisade overall. They had a difficult task to kind of follow up a hit with the previous generation, but after living with this, I think you can say that they really improved a lot of elements, and plus this hybrid system is kind of the icing on the cake.
And on the Airball side, what we're going to say is the design, especially in some of the lower trim levels. I really love the way this calligraphy looks. It looks classy and elegant, but in some of the lower trim levels, they do that matte black plastic across the lower pieces, and it looks a little bit on the cheaper side to me. So definitely pay attention as you go through the trim structure to the overall design, because it does change quite a lot. And let's go ahead and talk about, do we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it this week? I think I speak for everyone on the Car Confections team and say we absolutely loved this Palisade a lot better, even after living with it. Our initial impressions were really good, but living with it really just solidified all of the good elements that we liked about it originally and really made it seem like a great family SUV all in all. Now let's talk pricing for the Palisade. So like I said at the very beginning of this video, we start around $39,000 for the base SE model. As you move up the trim structure, of course, it gets more expensive. This calligraphy starts at $54,560. The hybrids are going to be about $2,000 extra on top of that, so about $56,000 is where we start. This model is fully loaded because we have all-wheel drive. We also have floor mats on this particular tester. $1,600 destination, $60,625 is what we're looking at on this particular model. If you're curious as to where it's manufactured, it is in Ulsan, Korea. And if you're looking to buy a Hyundai Palisade or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's quickly discuss resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Hyundai Palisade's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 55.35% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 19.61%. Now, it's worth noting those are above industry average for all vehicle brands. However, it's not going to be quite as good as some of the vehicles you might be cross-shopping with, such as Honda, Toyota, Subaru, or Mazda.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. What this does is take into account several different reliability studies from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a holistic picture. In this regard, Hyundai is rated just slightly below the industry average for all vehicle brands.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, also important in that decision is your warranty. You do have a really good one, a 5-year, 60,000-mile basic warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Just be aware that Hyundai has gotten rid of all complimentary maintenance for 2026 model year vehicles. And guys, that's going to be all for our in-depth 7-day review of the all-new 2026 Hyundai Palisade. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we really hope you did, we'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We strive to cover the latest and greatest cars on the market and also cover unique types of content like this where we can live with it for a full 7 days and provide you with our real-world impressions, as well as things like night reviews, so you definitely won't want to miss out. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.